With the campaign slogan, "Let's open the door to community," it's not hard to guess what student body presidential hopeful Grant May's campaign is focused on.
I believe that once we increase the communication between the student body and the student senate, they'll have transparency to see exactly what we're doing with their time, as well as if we can connect students to the communities that they need, we are able to better represent them.
Communication. That's what May says he wants to be remembered for if he wins next month's election.
I think my legacy as student body president will be one that closed the communication gap between the student body senate and the student body.
Leadership is a quality that seems to run in May's family. His grandfather, Winston Hill, was a captain for the New York Jets, helping lead the team to a championship in Super Bowl III. But his legacy was not limited to the field. Hill also ran football camps for young linesmen and helped start the first alcohol abuse prevention program in Denver. In addition, May's aunt, Brenda Cole, is a U.S. Circuit Court judge in Atlanta. May says he's been blessed to be surrounded by such strong leaders throughout his life, and that these leaders have had a profound effect on his development.
That resonates with me, that leaders don't only lead for their own benefit, but they grow other people around them.
May's focus on community has led him to oppose expensive building projects on campus that he blames for higher tuition, loss of jobs, and contributing to the university's current budget deficit, saying the school should be putting people first.
And it's time for us to look at whether or not we value people or buildings that make us look good. And I believe it is people who represent what the Bear population is and not buildings.
May says his real-world experience in business and government will help him make sure things get done during his term.
I have actually worked in politics before. I used to work for the U.S. Congress and write healthcare policy, and I had to go between certain legislators and make sure that there was unity between them in order to get certain things passed.
Along with improving communication, May said he wants to help students find community on campus. Using the Marcus Garvey Cultural Center as an example, he said that there are several resources on campus that students aren't taking advantage of.
So it's my belief that the resources on campus that we do have are being underutilized, and therefore students are feeling like they are underrepresented in the Student Senate.
May said it's all part of his plan to open the door to community. Reporting from the campus commons, this is Luke Mullins, Bear News. Baseball. It's been a central feature of American culture for well over a century, and now some of its rarest memorabilia has made its way to Colorado. History Colorado Center public historian and exhibit developer Sam Bach let Bear News in for a tour of the traveling play ball exhibit. The most attention-grabbing display was a collection of bats near the entrance.
It's meant to sort of show, through time some of the greatest hitters in the sport. But you can see we've set it up so that it looks like Lou Gehrig is actually swinging the bats. So if you take a look, this is Ty Cobb's bat. You can see, if you look carefully on the barrel there on the top, right under his signature, where he nailed it back together when it cracked and then filed it back down smooth, because this is his favorite bat.
Playball also featured a variety of gloves that showed the evolution of the game over time.
Babe Ruth, I think this is a cool case. I really like this one because you can see here, this is his glove, from sort of early on in his career. And it's a glove. It's not, it's not a mitt like we think of today with the pocket. It's just a glove. And, you can imagine, catching a pop fly ball with that, it's not going to feel great. You have to have a big, tough hand. Well, there's no pocket, exactly, yeah. And there's actually not a lot of padding either. You can see it's kind of just thick leather. with like a little padding inside, but not with something I'd want to catch a fastball with, let's put it that way.
And as baseball changed, so did the country. As the sport grew in popularity, it became a central piece of pop culture.
Of course, Joe DiMaggio, amazing baseball player, but probably almost as famous for his relationship with Marilyn Monroe. And this is a receipt for a dozen roses that he sent to her while she was in the hospital in 1961.
But the impact of baseball on the culture goes far beyond the celebrities of Hollywood. At times, certain players could change public perception. Perhaps none more memorable than a Brooklyn icon who even had his own comic book.
This is a comic book. So Jackie Robinson, baseball hero, but also this program from Jackie Robinson's first major league game, the first time an African-American man played in the major leagues.
Although the Rockies celebrate their 25th anniversary this season, baseball was around in Colorado long before the Rockies played their first game in 1993. The Denver Bears, who later became the Denver Zephyrs, were a popular minor league team in Colorado from the 1880s until the arrival of the Rockies more than a century later. The final display in the exhibit was by far the largest, and it featured memorabilia spanning the Rockies' 25 years of existence. From the Blake Street Bombers to the incredible 2007 World Series run, the cornerstone of Coors Field, and even the jerseys of today's stars, they had it all.
What you see here on these champagne bottles are actually literally sweat socks. And apparently this is part of the tradition. You know, when you win the championship series, you grab just socks out of lockers and you write the division series and whatever else you want on there, and then you tie it around the champagne bottles.
For Sam Bach and baseball fans across Colorado, the exhibit is a reminder of why this game will always be remembered as America's pastime.
And this is why I love this exhibit, is because people have such a personal connection to baseball.
Right.
And, you know, when they come in here and they see this stuff, it brings back, you know, those memories of being a kid at the ballpark or, you know, going with your dad.
Reporting from the History Colorado Center in Denver, this is Luke Mullins, Bear News. Nestled away in Gunter Hall is a sports and exercise lab with a unique purpose. Recently, UNC volleyball star and Bear News reporter Courtney Lockie paid a visit to the biomechanics lab. Teaching assistant Nathan Roby explained how the technology works.
So essentially what we do is we measure human movement. So we have about 10 cameras in this room that emit an infrared light, and they reflect off of little markers that we will attach to the person on their limbs at specific kind of landmarks that then are used to kind of generate a skeleton of that individual, which we then kind of do all our calculations off of.
Lockie participated in balance tests on both legs while the infrared cameras took in the data. The information gained from the test will be assessed and sent to volleyball head athletic trainer Jimmy Adele. These scores will be compared to their scores from the team test again in June. Reporting from Gunter Hall, this is Luke Mullins, Bear News.
I've never run for office before.
Is that we need to repeal tape. I've traveled.
The race for governor of Colorado, however, stands out. In January, the New York Times called
sure we can finally fund our public schools and our roads and bridges.
How women have been treated and so on. It's interesting to me as a businessman.
They have is probably terrible.
Attending the military, I would never would have been able to even
Hearing the same thing
Only a half-hour drive from campus, UNC students can find a sports store that's a world of its own. The Shields Sports Store celebrated its grand opening on September 30th, and early visitors have not been disappointed. The massive sports store entertains its customers with attractions like a 16,000-gallon saltwater aquarium and a towering Ferris wheel that sits in the center of the store. Visitors are also greeted by bronze statues of American presidents as they enter, as well as animatronic versions inside. Shields isn't just about entertainment, however. The store also contains over 80 specialty shops featuring clothing and equipment, as well as vast hunting and fishing sections. And if you feel the need to let out your inner kid, Shields has its own toy section complete with a colossal bear made entirely out of Legos. If all the shopping leaves you hungry, no need to worry. Shields has that covered too. You can stop by the store's restaurant, Gina's Cafe, for soup, sandwiches, fudge, and Starbucks coffee. Oh, and before you leave, make sure to check out Shields' selection of UNC apparel. Reporting from Shields and Johnstown, this is Luke Mullins, Bear News.
Well, the results are in. Last week's voting wrapped up another year of elections for student government at UNC. After all the hard work of the campaign, we finally know who will represent the students for the next year. Junior Tim Hernandez came out on top in the much-anticipated race for student body president, beating out student counselor Lobna Al-Sarraj and sophomore Joseph Michael Milanazzo. Al-Sarraj sought to become the first international student president. She said, although she comes from another country, she still has strong roots right here in Greeley.
I'm originally from Saudi Arabia. I have been living in the States for the past 10 years. More specifically, I've lived here in Greeley for the past 10 years. So I guess you could say I'm a Greeley native. Greeley is my second home.
Hernandez has been an active member on the UNC campus, most notably organizing the DACA Solidarity Rally last fall. He ran a campaign focused on providing an authentic representation of the UNC campus. After the election, Hernandez sat down with Bear News to discuss the campaign and what the future holds for Student Senate.
My entire campaign platform was built around what students wanted to see, their ideas. And so the two of the biggest things that they told me was there's no chance to unify here. And so we talked about things like tradition and bringing a tradition to UNC and actually using that as a space for all students to come together and building something like that that people can respond and engage with, and they meet people from all these other things to continually collaborate. And the second thing was student values. We don't have student values, at least not well enough. And every other college you go to, they'll be on the floor or in the staircase or on a mural or something like that. And coming up with those as a student body, I think, is important. And they can adapt and change to our student body as we progress. But coming up with something that students can relate to other students with, that we're using as a bracket for our student body, I think proposes a chance to unify, and which is ultimately the way we want to build.
This is Tim's first run for student government office, so the election process was a new experience for him. He said he was surprised by what worked and what didn't work during the campaign. While Hernandez was the campus favorite, results are not official pending any grievances that are filed. Official results are anticipated this Friday.